Okay, today I'm going to show you how to make Turkish coffee. And I'm going to give credit to the Turks on this by calling it Turkish coffee because they probably spread this around more than anyone else, and historically in modern times have been doing it longer than anybody else, but it's very doubtful that they invented this method of making it. This is an ancient way of making coffee and probably goes back to the very beginnings of coffee. But having said that, you'll find this method of making coffee under many titles. Many countries and cultures have adopted this as their own. You'll find this same method of making coffee titled under Lebanese coffee, or Mayan coffee, or Greek coffee. And that's a great example. Like the Greeks were given this method of making coffee when the Ottoman Empire actually took over their country. So though you'll find this under many titles, it's most commonly probably known as Turkish coffee. And although I wouldn't say this is a difficult way, there is a little learning curve to it, so you're going to have to take some time. You're probably not going to get it just right on the first one. I hope I do a good enough job in the video, maybe you will. But it does take a little bit of time. You can tell this was developed out of a culture or a mindset that believed in doing things right, even though it might have taken a little more time. I also think when I look at the way this method of making coffee, they're using a very small amount of product to make a very fine, potent cup of coffee. This wasn't developed, out of a wasteful culture. Turkish coffee is not the kind of coffee you usually prepare in the morning. It's more of a dessert coffee. It's used when you're entertaining guests, or better yet, if you're having a date. In fact, this is probably one of the ways that coffee picked up the legend or myth of being an aphrodisiac. If you can imagine having a nice meal, you're going to have a couple glasses of wine, and then you're having that sleepy, tired feeling after that, and then you bring out the Turkish coffee, and you're just jolted with this high energy, euphoric feeling. You're going to be up for hours. You got to think of something to do. That's this kind of coffee. Listen, I wouldn't show you this if I didn't think it was worth it. You're going to have to buy a couple items in order to make Turkish coffee. You can't make this with some pot out of your kitchen there. It doesn't have expensive items, but you have to buy a few things in order to make Turkish coffee. But it is well worth your time to learn this skill. It's a lifetime skill, and it'll just blow people away after dinner. It's a great way to make an impression. So what I got in front of you are some items that you would use to make Turkish coffee. This is actually a Turkish coffee kit. You've got a little brass hand grinder here. You've got a copper eebrek, which has got a tin lining. You've got your copper cups with porcelain inserts in them. Very small cup, but again, you're packing a big punch into that little cup of coffee. And then I've got an Egyptian eebrek as well. Now, these two things are probably the most important. You got to have an eebrek, and they do come in different sizes depending on how many you want to serve. This one's just for a 2-cup set. Now, outside of Turkey and most of the Middle East, it's going to be called an eebrek. That's what they refer it to. At least that's what we refer it to in the United States. In Turkey and the Middle East, this will be called a jezva. You can get them, I don't know, you can get them on eBay. You can have them sent straight from Turkey. And I will put these down below. I'll spell them out for you, because jezva and eebrek, they spell them all kinds of weird ways. It's not like it's pronounced, so it's very confusing. So I'll just put them down there so nobody's asking me later on, how do I get one of these? Okay, in order to make good Turkish coffee, you got to start with a great product. You got to start with good beans from a good plantation that are roasted correctly, and overall they have to be fresh. If you're going to start with crap coffee, you're going to end up with a crap product. You're missing the whole point, and you're wasting your time here. You got to start with a good product. You got to have good beans for that. Next to that, what makes Turkish coffee different from everything else is the way you grind it. Turkish coffee, the grounds are pulverized to a powder. I'm talking close to what flour feels like. It's got to be a powder. The finest grind on your best Krupp or Cuisinart grinder in your house is not going to be able to grind this fine enough. The only way that you're going to get a fine enough grind to make Turkish coffee is in a hand grinder or a mortar and pestle. In fact, I put this out here because that's probably how they used to do it. Even with the professional machines that you have in coffee shops, and they have an espresso setting and a Turkish setting, it's not even close. It's not even close. You could possibly get close enough with an actual espresso grinder that, you know, if you dialed it down, some of them can get down to that fine powder. But Turkish coffee is even finer than espresso. It's probably the finest coffee grind that you're ever going to have to perform in order to make a coffee. Now, I just happen to have a commercial grinder, and even though it has a Turkish setting and it has an espresso setting, that's a lie. Neither of them are going to get that fine enough for you to make espresso, let alone Turkish coffee. However, it's a good way to save a little time by making the first grind on Turkish coffee, and then we're going to move to a hand grinder to finish it up. This will save you the time at least to getting it to that point. And if you don't have, you know, I don't expect you to have a commercial grinder in your house like I do. Just use the finest setting on your electric grinder at home. Ooh, that smells good. So as you can see, it's pretty fine, but it's not fine enough. You shouldn't be able to feel the grit at all. It should feel like you're pinching flour, not sand. So now comes the time. This takes a lot of time to grind this fine. I could use my brass Turkish grinder. It takes a long time to do that. I've done it. You could use your mortar and pestle as well. But I happen to have a ceramic grinder, and that works even better than both of those. So I'm going to add my Turkish ground coffee from my commercial grinder to my ceramic grinder, and then I'm going to grind that down. You know what's kind of cool about this method is that, you know, I know today everybody wants, you know, everything done right now, instantly. You know, we're buying all these junk machines that have crap coffee in little plastic cups that, you know, we force some water through and spend hundreds of dollars on, still getting a junk product. Like I said, back then it was well worth it to take the time. This comes from a different time, you know, to do it right. But if you're entertaining someone, or let's say you have a date over, this is a great way to spend time going through this process, and you're talking and socializing while you're doing it. Now, while you're doing this, you'll find that you have to pat this just to clear the burrs. And if it gets to the point where it's totally clogged up, you may have to back off the grind from its finest point and blow it out. Believe me, this takes a while, but it is worth it. I have found that you can speed this up a little bit with a drill and a bit. Oh yeah! Just like how the ancients used to do it. Now that probably took about 5 minutes to grind that down. And believe me, again, putting it through an electric mill first at the finest setting does give you a little head start. And for 2 demi-tosses, usually on my hand grinder, my ceramic grinder, is about that 1 cup mark. Now we can actually get on to making the coffee. So I'll take my grounds, I'll dump them out so I can get to them. Take your demi-toss porcelain cup and pour it out into about 3/4 full. I'm making 2, so I'm going to do 2. I have found that, at least with the size eebrek that I have, that I can't make just 1. You have to at least make 2 to do it right, or it just doesn't come out right. And then put in the amount of sugar, which is up to you. I put in 1 little spoonful for each demi-toss. Sugar is definitely a part of this, but it's up to your taste on this. There is no set amount except what you like, what you want. The only thing I can say that is set is that you got to start with a good fine coffee. And then 2 heaping spoonfuls, usually a heaping tablespoon of coffee. And you are starting with cold water. It's got to be cold. And this is the only time that you're going to stir. You want to dissolve as much of that as possible, the sugar and the coffee powder. I'm going to use my homemade stove for this. And most Arab and Middle Eastern countries, they have special alcohol burners just for making coffee. It's such an important part of their culture. And again, this is the only time you're going to stir. This is crucial. And this is where the skill part comes in, is heating this coffee up. We want to heat this up, but we want to heat it up slowly, and we don't want to boil it. We want to create a raft of crema on top that we're going to harvest from the coffee. That's the key. That's the key part of this coffee, is that crema on top. You're getting an unbelievable extraction because you've powderized the coffee. There's no filter to this. So I want to heat this up slowly. You guys probably can't see the flame because it is alcohol, but it's going. Remember, my stove only takes about 20 or 30 seconds to fully ignite. We don't want a full rolling boil. If you get a full rolling boil, it will actually destroy that crema or that raft. You almost want to simmer it. You want to bring it right to that point, but not any further. And that's what creates that foam or crema on top of the coffee. I actually set it right down so it kind of shuts the heat down. And I'm watching the top of that coffee to see when it starts to simmer. It's just starting to bubble on the side. And that's what we want. There it goes. See that raft that's being created there? Not sure if you can even see it. Take it off the heat when it starts to simmer. Too much boiling and you'll destroy the foam. 2 or 3 times of bringing it up to that simmer is plenty to get the foam that you need. That's perfect. This is really a good batch. I hope you guys can see that. It's just perfect. So now we're going to harvest that foam, that crema, and you extract it before you pour the coffee. Couple in each one. It's got this beautiful like golden color to it. Whenever you're serving this, it's proper to make sure everyone gets an equal amount of foam. And then you're going to carefully, the coffee grounds, some of them are floating, they're going to float to the back when you pour this out. But you are going to get some of that powder that's going to go to the bottom. It's best to pour it from the side so you don't break up the foam and sink the foam. I'm hoping you guys can see that. If the camera picks up on that, that's awesome. That golden foam on top. And that is Turkish coffee. Now I wish someone else was here to share this with me. Believe it or not, I am all alone today. It's just me and the dog, and he does not like coffee. And my kids made Turkish Delight the other day. They were watching Narnia. This is another very fine recipe. I should actually make a video when they're making that. Ancient recipe and unbelievably different from today's candy. But this is how you would serve Turkish coffee, maybe after dinner. Unbelievable, natural, pick-me-up. Very potent, small amount of coffee, but extremely potent. And it's beautiful to look at. It's really a cool color. And there's an air. Oh my gosh, that's so good. I mean, that is a cup of coffee. If you know, by American standards, if you're an Aldi's or gas station coffee drinker, this would probably kill you. But this is as close to nirvana as I can get with coffee. This is really good. That's awesome. It's worth the time to do things right. You know, I wish my culture was more like that, to enjoy the world like that. You know, these tastes, these very intense flavors and tastes. Anyway, there is a learning curve to this. It's worth it to take the time. You'll have this for the rest of your life. It'll blow people away when you make it for them. And it's incredible. Even right now, I'm getting the rush of that coffee coming into my brain and my body. It's just so good. That, and then top it off with, you know, the sugar in the Turkish Delight. And this would be served with a glass of water on the side to clear the palate, because it's so thick it's almost like a syrup. There's an old Arab saying that says coffee should be as black as hell and as sweet as love. And they were definitely talking about Turkish coffee, or that style of coffee, when they made that saying. Anyway guys, try it out if you get a chance. You won't regret it.